All right. This is an update. I literally, as I'm uploading the video of at least my original one to YouTube, I realized either I got some things wrong or some things have changed since I initially did that video. So, here's an update for why does it say Stryker of Enyo up in the corner? Am I really worried people are going to steal my footage of me wearing my stupid hat with a gun that nobody uses in the division? God. Alright, so this is the update to my Stryker's perspective, the RetroEngine Sigma, and the RetroBlocks. So, we're going to get into some details that either I got wrong or I just didn't have the information at my fingertips at the time, or some new stuff has come out since. Either way. But basically, I am not going to talk about the RetroEngine Sigma until I get my version of it, which is going to be in June. So, I mean, no more details until then for that. And this RetroBlocks, I'm not going to go into any more details with that until the actual Kickstarter at least launches, which is supposed to be in April. Otherwise, no more details, for basically the next 2 months, give or take. If I end up buying it, I do. But I think, we'll see. But so anyway, as with the RetroEngine Sigma, they actually have a retail version. That's the thing that you can buy right now that actually has the little wood grain panel on it for $79 US, and then there's another one for $129. That is going to be the retail version that they are launching in July of 2017. So otherwise, everything is the same. They changed the dual analog stick controller to some different design other than the PlayStation 2, but you can still keep the original if you want. So otherwise, the RetroEngine Sigma, at its heart, is meant to play ROMs and ISOs. Just to be perfectly clear, I know I made it clear before, but I'm just trying to be clear with other people. Like, you are meant to buy this thing and then, preload all the ROMs and ISOs to PlayStation games and Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis and Mega Drive and all that stuff. It's meant to run all of those the way they are. But the RetroBlocks is essentially, like I said before, a Retron 5. It is meant to obviously emulate and even use hybrid emulation technology to play the games, but it is meant for you to have the original software, the original cartridge, or the original discs. Now, their website does actually say that it will back up the files. It will, so that you don't always have a disc spinning in the optical drive. So that's great. You can play the Sega CD games and you don't have to worry about wear and tear on the optical drive. It saves wear and tear on their optical drive as well. So you don't need to always have a disc spinning in there. As long as you got the original disc, you can basically make a copy of it on the hard drive and run it from there. So that's pretty cool too. Maybe it means some access times will be a little bit quicker. Who knows? But, and the RetroBlocks is meant to be modular. So, it seems like the main part of the system and the optical drive, the disk drive, that's the main part of the system. Otherwise, you can actually snap on additional modules. I mentioned the modules, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail. But the modules actually come with 2 controller ports of the designated system and a cartridge slot. So like for a Super Nintendo, the Super Nintendo cartridge slot will be on top, and it'll have 2 controller ports for the Super Nintendo. Now obviously it still has USB controllers you can use, but then you can actually snap like a Sega Genesis module onto it instead. And so you'll still have the optical drive, and you'll still have the main guts of the system, but instead now you'll have the Genesis/Mega Drive version on top that will also have the controller ports meant for that. So why are they doing this? Well, it basically means that if they made a machine like the Retron 5 that has an optical disk drive plus, you know, like 5 cartridge slots on it, this thing could possibly be quite expensive. But this way they can expand it by using smaller, perhaps $40 to $50 little modules. So, you know, if you want to just play NES and Super Nintendo games, boom, you are set, you are good to go. If you want to do TurboGrafx 16 cartridges, or perhaps you want to do, I'm not sure about, I would assume that region-wise they would try to do both cartridge slots if possible. But if you want to do another system, then you basically buy the $40 to $50 module for that, and that'll give you access to all those. Well, I mean, you still have to have the cartridges. So they clearly said this, the RetroBlocks is not meant for you to load. She's just spinning around me. It is not meant for you to load up an SD card with all the ROMs on it and all the ISOs, you know, all the CD-based games, you know, the entire library of a PlayStation, and then just start playing. It's not meant for that. You know, they're actually trying to curb pirating and whatnot by requiring you to have the original software. You know, they're basically emulating the hardware for you in a sense. So those are the things that either maybe possibly wasn't clear, or I learned a few extra things that I didn't necessarily mention in the original one. So, and me, I'm all for, just so that you guys know ahead of time, I'm all for whatever gives me the best picture and the best presentation for showing on YouTube. So, I mean, like I said to you guys, you know, I would use emulation in order to capture footage from any of these retro systems, but I would try to make it a point to actually show you that, hey, I've bought the original cartridge, or the original disc, or the original game in some form, because I think that if I'm profiting from a video on YouTube, I should own the original software, or I should own a copy of the original movie that I'm spoofing or, you know, making fun of. That's just me, at least. But if this RetroBlocks has a better picture quality and it still gives me some functionality that an emulator would, I'm kind of all for it, you know, versus if I'm playing a PlayStation game on the RetroEngine Sigma instead. If, you know, especially for the FMV games, if the video quality looks better on one over the other, then I'm going to go with that. You know, whether or not that requires me to buy a disc or not, I can always preview, you know, ROMs or something on something else. If I just want to, you know, play the entire PlayStation 1 library, you know, I can use a different device to do that, but then when I want to actually sit down and do a review for you guys, you know, then I would use something like maybe the RetroBlocks, you know, buy an original copy of a game and go from there, you know, buy Snatcher on a disc, but then actually just play it on the RetroBlocks. Yeah, that means ponying up quite a bit of money, like I bought Snatcher before for like $130, I think the price was at the time. I forget what the price is now, but you know, that's just what you got to do. So that's to clear things up. I'm not going to be doing any more update videos for the RetroBlocks or the RetroEngine until they actually come out, or the Kickstarter launches in April for the RetroBlocks. But for the most part, you know, none of the aspects I talked about are really going to change. It's just gonna, you know, we're gonna get closer. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not gonna add any more things to this until I either get my hands on my RetroEngine, or we get, you know, some more details that look more promising for the RetroBlocks. And that's it. That's my update, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you so much for watching. And here is one of the best lines in Bad Company 2.
That is the greatest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. Let's just go get the damn satellite.
All right, forget the satellite part. It's just that line. But hey, thanks for watching. I will bring you more. I promise.